Welcome to the Players Ball podcast for AT Aliens by AT Aliens, hosted by Alex the Great and co-host MB. We bring you raw takes, real debates, and the hottest stories in Atlanta sports. No filters, no fluff, just straight talk from the city that runs the South.
We got traffic incoming, covering all the biggest news in ATL sports, no matter the lane, no matter the highway. Let's get into it with Spaghetti Junction. Yes, sir. We are back. A lot of traffic, a lot of things to discuss. A lot of highways always converging into a single place. So we're going to start with Atlanta United, man. I heard the call, the Mike Conti call with the clinching kick by Latte Lath. It sounded exciting to watch, man. I know you bought your subscription. How did that look in pictures and video?
So I actually didn't see it live. So I turned the game on right after it started. So I missed the opening goal by New York. And then I watched pretty much the remainder of the first half. I turned it off towards the end. Can't remember what I was flipping back and forth to, but it might have been some college basketball. Might have been a little Braves action, since that was Saturday night. But we tied the game up going into halftime, and something that's been kind of a bad spot for this team has been its second half performance. And so second half starts, I turn the game on, and like clockwork, we go down 3-1. I'm like, all right, well, if history is any indication, this game is in the books. So I turned it off. So I didn't see the call live. I will take credit though. Sometimes watching can be a negative curse. So like they needed me not to be watching to play better, and I'll accept that.
Yeah, flush that subscription money down the drain, man. There's no more watching for you.
Yeah, we'll
you quit on the team, man. Let's call it what it is.
We'll have to test the theory out a couple more times before we completely say sayonara to that subscription money. But no, I think it was the first comeback down multiple goals that Atlanta United's completed in they haven't been around all that long, but a long time. Their manager, Ronnie Diallo, was pretty fired up. Just a good game to kind of get some momentum because this team needs it. And it was good to see, Latte Lath has scored another one. I think he's scored in every game we've scored a goal in, which I think is 5 out of 6. And Miggy got his first goal on a header to level the score for his first goal in his return to United. So 3 points will take him. Still undefeated at home, I believe.
It's very early to say that it was such a sound investment for the biggest transfer paid in MLS history, but return don't look so bad right now, man. It looked pretty damn good, actually. So shout out United. Let's keep those winning ways alive, especially away, right? We know that those are one of our struggle areas. So, or were they were at home?
They were at home.
Okay.
But I do think we got our first points on the road recently as well in a draw. So
got it. All right. On another highway, Raheem Morris. I think this is, the talking heads, so we're gonna do it too. But the talking heads making a mountain out of molehill. Raheem Morris missed the NFL coaches. There's an annual picture, the calendar. They had their yearbook picture of the NFL quarterbacks. 31 coaches are there. There's 32 head coaches in the league. Our coach was the coach who missed the photo. Now, I said that he ran into some flight delays due to weather. I ain't seen no bad. I ain't seen no bad weather. Maybe you just didn't want to show up. But did you hear about that? What do you think about that? Is it nothing?
I think it's nothing. I think it's the off season, so every little storyline is going to make the headline. It's silly, right? Like, would it have been better if he was there? Probably. Is it that big of a deal that he wasn't? No, right? Like, how many yearbook photos did you show up for? I think I got a few.
All of them.
I think I got a few yearbooks with a not pictured for you. No,
not a one.
Not a one.
Mildred Sue had me at picture day every year, my brother. So no, I'm in every yearbook. I hope this doesn't happen. I'm just saying it to be funny and facetious, but if like this is his last year being the coach of the Falcons and he's not pictured in the photo, it's like who will remember it?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I do think it's nothing though. I don't think it's a big deal. Especially since I guess he had a legitimate reason. He's flying commercial. Peasant. No,
I hope he was just too busy scouting at one of these pro days, and that's why he missed it. But
you would imagine for a picture event, maybe you're there the night before. I don't know. It does seem kind of weird that he missed it, but I don't think it's a foreshadowing or any bad omen.
Yeah, I didn't even know this yearbook existed. They have pictures, I'm sure, for coaches on team websites and, the About Us kind of pages, maybe for the NFL, but who's to say someone with some Photoshop skills and an old picture can't get him brushed in there?
They should actually do that.
Yeah.
So it was the annual NFL coaches meeting, right? So the picture is just a small part of what they were doing. I think one of the bigger points of discussion that I heard about was, the tush push. Advocates and proponents were talking about the tush push, whether it should be outlawed or not. Where do you stand with that? I know we talked about it at one point, but I don't remember what your opinion was on that.
I don't know. I think from a fan's perspective, I think it diminishes the game a little bit, right? In terms of competitiveness. I think it's, and this is an outsider, right? Like, just purely watching the game, it looks like a gimme. I guarantee you the Eagles will fight, will die on the hill saying that it's not as easy as they make it look, and it's skillful. It's a boring play, regardless. It's a boring play. It cheapens the game, I think. And I personally would not be mad if they chose to ban it. But if they don't, they don't. Teams got to learn either how to join them or beat them.
You don't think anybody's tried? I mean, there have been a number of people who tried. The Buffalo Bills tried in the playoffs last year, and they failed, I believe, more than they had success. So replicating it, if it is a given, I think replicating it would cheapen it, right? If everyone could do it, then all right, you need to change it. But it feels like you're punishing the Eagles because they figured out something that no one else can do. So that's why I say, outlawing it would be, I think that's a trash decision. Right?
Cowards
if it was
move.
my team that had figured out something that was within the rules and they took it away because no one could stop it, I'd be pissed. Royally pissed.
I was just thinking about it from like a fan's perspective. I don't think it's entertaining to watch, right? Like, it's like the same.
Eagles fans are bored by it?
No, because winning is never boring. But
neither are first downs. It's just a part of it, right?
I'm just saying, when you think about what's exciting, right? It's that running back breaking that long run or that Hail Mary. It's the whole chicks dig the long ball and the 3-pointer when they're making them kind of mentality. It's just, it's less exciting to sit there and watch Jalen Hurst get his butt pushed across the line a couple inches or a yard for a first down every time.
You got to keep it in that context, right? Like, you're not throwing a Hail Mary on a 3rd and 1.
No, you're not.
It's usually a quarterback sneak, and it doesn't have a rugby scrum to it. It's boring. It's a boring play regardless. Nobody's jumping over the top anymore. I think people were just getting injured, or I don't know why they stopped that. I used to love to see running backs dive over the pile. I thought that was exciting football, but no one's doing that anymore. Anything that they're doing for a 3rd and 1 is kind of boring. So you're not correcting the excitement on that, to me.
I can feel you there. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do. I think they'll probably end up banning it just because there's so much pushback. But we'll see if they don't. And I'm a Raheem Morris, I'm calling in some rugby experts to come teach it, because I think I don't know what all these teams are doing. I don't know what the Buffalo Bills have done, but I think that's the missing piece. If you're just trying to take football minds and replicate it, I don't think you'll ever get there. But if you bring in experts, I mean, it's a rugby play.
Mabata is he's not Australian. I think he's a New Zealander, but he was a former rugby player. So they have an experienced man who used to do it, right? So that leads credence to what you're saying. Having a real rugby person teach it.
Yeah, I think that's the only way. That and how to combat it, right? I think you could probably learn a few things from how they defend in a rugby scrum on trying to stop it. But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. You want to head up 78?
We can.
Is it 78?
It's 316.
Yeah, you can do 316 or 78. That's right. You can take 78 up there from the east side of Atlanta.
The only way I get to Athens is straight up 316, and it will take you straight into downtown. Or I guess they should call it 316 Motor Speedway or 78 Motor Speedway, because them boys don't know how to slow down. 2 more dogs arrested. One was incoming sophomore or upcoming sophomore Nitro Tuggle. He showed some promise last year. He's a wide receiver out of Indiana. That's where he went to high school. Kind of.
This is Jesse Tuggle's son?
No. This is non-related to Jesse Tuggle.
Not Grady Jarrett's brother.
No. Complete unrelation.
That's a fake name anyway.
Nitro
Tuggle? That's not his name.
It's not, but I don't remember what his first name is, his legal birth name. But either way, Nitro Tuggle was arrested. Both players were suspended indefinitely. But the scary part about the Nitro incident is he was clocked going, I think, 104 miles an hour.
7.
And so, like, we're not talking about doing 10, 15 over. We're talking about way excess speeds. And after all of the traffic related incidents that players have had up in Athens, you would think that there would be a little bit more caution, a little bit more reservedness, right?
Yeah. Why? If I'm Kirby, I wouldn't even let him drive.
So
he got enough. The program has enough money for these guys to just have to. They can have a car service.
So
literally.
The interesting thing about it, Kirby spoke. Of course, he was asked 150 questions about it and what they're doing as a program, and do they have a culture problem? The standard interrogations. And he said some of these kids come to college without a license, and as a program, they help them. They help them go through driving schools and maintain their licenses. And I understand, like, that's part of growing into being an adult, unless you're living in a major city, around here, like specifically speaking about my area, if you didn't have the ability to drive, like you don't have the Ubers and the Lyft services that you do. I mean, they exist, don't get me wrong, but the availability is much more limited than it is when you're in a bigger metropolitan area. And so I can see where someone would want to have a license, right? Like it's kind of like an achievement, a stepping stone, somewhat of a need, right? Less of a need, I think, in a town like Athens, but
I'm not even saying to put them in Ubers and Lyfts, right? Ford sponsors the dogs, have a fleet of F-150s that are just driving players where they need to go at all times. And I get the aspect of, getting your driver's license being a step towards adulthood. That's eligible at 16. When you're 20, even if you don't have a license, I'm sure you've driven once or twice. To me, it feels like a cop out a little bit. That you got all these players that get up there. They get, I don't know, what his NIL money looked like or what kind of car he was driving.
Oh, what kind of car do you think he was driving?
F-150.
No, you said it.
What was he driving?
A Charger.
Was he in a Charger?
Yeah.
Almost all of them are in Chargers when that goes down, right? And they got Hellcats and at the minimum a SRT. Right? Why outlaw Hemi engines?
Yeah.
Now that won't stop it. I've done 107 and I wasn't in a Hemi, but I also don't have as much to lose as a football player does, a UGA football player.
Just like
similar age.
A side nugget on Charger Hellcat. So I got a gift from my wife to do a.
She got you a Hellcat?
No, she got me a driving experience that I actually did last Friday, and it was at Atlanta Motorsports Park in Dawsonville. And so I did the Lamborghini Huracan experience. I got to drive a Lamborghini Huracan on track. But before I got to drive, I did a ride along with a professional driver in a Charger Hellcat wide body. Those things are no joke, bro. Like,
yeah, you wet yourself a little bit?
Nah, never.
What did he top out at?
I think we hit 120 on the back straight.
That's nuts.
Yeah, I mean, professional drivers, right? Like they know what they're doing. But I could see being a 17, 18-year-old kid, stepping into one of those things and just getting into a lot of trouble. And I don't think Kirby was saying that the whole thing about the driver's license as an excuse. He was just trying to say, like, look, this is where we're at. We're in some cases having to start from ground zero and educate and teach and do all these things. We bring in teachers, we get them in, driving schools. We have first responders and all this, stuff that we do to try and educate the team on the risks and how to do things the right way, the smart way, the safe way. And they're still having all these issues. I don't know what the answer is, but I know that there's a lot of heavy discipline happening internally. And you see it with these two players being suspended indefinitely. It was both of their first incidences with any kind of off-field issues.
The optics aren't going to allow for any of that, right? The first incident that really broke the news, 2 people died. It's been it's a thing now. It's a whole thing. It has a life of its own.
It does.
Suspending the 2 players on their first incident, that's the least that he could do. He's gonna have to do more. He doesn't, because he's Kirby Smart. I'm sure the Eagles have a vested interest. The Saints have a vested interest now. I don't know if you heard about that. But yeah, it just feels like the powerful are powerfuling.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because they're semi-professional athletes, right? I mean, they're making a lot of money, but they're still amateurs, and they're young, and they're getting a lot of attention, a lot of money, and with that comes responsibilities that not everyone at 18, I wasn't ready for that kind of responsibility at 17, 18 years old.
How much
And
money were you making?
not
You say he's a sophomore, right? He's not 17, 18.
He's 19.
And if you can drive 107, it ain't your first day driving. No one's brave enough to do that. I guarantee it.
I mean, I put the pedal to the metal on 85 a time or two when I was 16, 17 driving up to Buford. Now, did I hit 107? I can't recall, but I know I was going in and out of traffic like an idiot. But that's not really the point I was trying to make. The point is the level of scrutiny may not be fair because you or I and anyone else outside of a student athlete, if they had some of these issues, like their livelihoods aren't going to be jeopardized, right? Like you pay your fine, you spend your night in jail, you do your probation, you do your community service, and then you go back to work, right? Like kicking these kids off the football field, which in a lot of ways is their ticket out of circumstance. That's their, hopes and dreams and future careers. To have it end over something like that seems a bit harsh, in my opinion. Now, I understand everything is done for the safety of others, and when you're putting other people at risk, it needs to be taken seriously. I just, I understand that this has become a thing and you're trying to nip it in the bud, but you got competing objectives, right? Like you're trying to teach and train men and keep people safe, but you're also trying to field a winning team and balance a roster and personnel. And there's all these things, and you're trying to make the decision of like, what is the right punishment, right? What is the next step? What is the best for the kid, but also what is the best for the organization? And sometimes those things are conflicting. I wouldn't want Kirby's job, is what I'm saying. And we are talking about a sophomore in high school or a sophomore in college is a 19, 20-year-old.
Disagree wholeheartedly. He has a responsibility to the citizens around him to nip it in the bud. If they want to fumble the bag by not learning from those who went before them, the ones who died and the ones who have gotten in trouble before them, then that's on them, man. No one took their livelihood. No one made them drive that fast. I understand they're young and dumb. Cool. There has to be something done. And if it's setting the example by a harsh punishment, then that's what's got to be done. I don't think he should be finished, dude. Like, he cannot, it can't become a thing. It's going to wreck the program.
Yeah. I mean,
there's eventually going to be somebody else stepping in besides Kirby, and he's going to lose control of the situation. He definitely doesn't want that.
I also heard an interesting argument, and maybe we can move on to the next topic after your input, but at some point someone on the team, like Kirby, can do all he wants to. He can lay down the punishment, he can discipline, kick kids off the roster, but at the end of the day, some leader in that locker room needs to step up and say, enough is enough. Like, we have objectives that we want to achieve as a team, and we need to stop doing this dumb stuff, because Kirby cannot babysit these guys 24/7.
Well, they can't be men who organize and someone steps up in the crowd to say, hey, knock it off, but also, knuckleheads that are just being young and dumb, on both sides of the fence. I don't think somebody can what a 20-year-old is gonna tell a 19-year-old, "Hey man, don't drive fast." No, the kids can't tell kids what to do. People probably told me not to drive fast. You know how many speeding tickets I got? A lot.
I
A
didn't.
lot. There you go.
I do think though, if you look at some of these past teams, a Jordan Davis or a Nakobe or a, a Nolan Smith, those guys when they spoke out in the locker room, other guys listened, and I think having players that have been around for 4 or 5 years, right? Like the Stetson Bennett's, the 24, 25-year-olds that, are in their 5th, 6th year in college. Like those guys have progressed to a level of maturity that some of those kids look up to, especially the ones that are going to be, first, second round draft picks. Like they want to be those guys. So I do think that your peer, like your teammate, sometimes holds more weight. Like if you were to come to me and tell me to stop acting reckless, I feel like it would hit me harder than my father coming in and doing it.
He's not their dad, right? He's essentially, if we're looking at him as semi-pro athletes, he's their boss.
Yeah.
So if your boss says, "Hey," if I'm like, "Hey man, you should show up 2 minutes early for every meeting," you don't care. But if your boss tells you that you need to show up 2 minutes early every meeting, you're more likely to do it. He's their boss.
That's a fair
I'm
analogy.
sure some of them look at him as a father figure, but him saying something and laying down the law, it shouldn't. Obviously, you want buy-in from the seniors and the elder statesmen on the team, but they're buying in. They're not laying the law down.
I think it should be a combination of both.
Yeah. But the onus is on Kirby. I can't pick a player and be like, "Hey, you guys are the reason that Nitro Tuggle's off the team."
No.
Unless somebody let them borrow their car, right?
Well, the ultimate responsibility is Nitro Tuggle, right? Like, but when all is said and done, they say stuff rolls uphill. Kirby's gonna be the one that's having to answer for the problems.
Yeah, no, for sure. He can't correct it moving forward. That's the onus I'm putting on Kirby. He has to correct this moving forward. I don't think that.
What do you think? What do you think corrects it? Because you're assuming everything that he's already done.
I know nothing, but I know it keeps happening. So whatever he's done has not worked.
So
this is an annual thing.
It's
UGA player speeding, kicked off team.
Multiple times a year at this point. I think they've had 20. They've had 20 driving related incidents.
20 is crazy.
It's crazy.
Doesn't feel like he's doing anything.
But the sad truth is he's doing a lot and it's just not working.
You don't know either.
Oh yeah, we do.
Like I'm saying that he doesn't do anything. What you know is just what he said. Neither one of us are in the building to know.
No, I know not just what he has said, but what people around the program and people that report on the program have said that have knowledge of the things that they've done. Now, 100% it's not working. So the real question is like, at what point is something going to work? And obviously you got to keep trying things until something does work, because you got to fix it.
Fix it, man. Yeah. Gotta fix it, and it's on Kirby to fix. That was my point. It's on Kirby to fix that. Man, we're on that road for a long time. BG Pops, Brittany Griner. I saw a little clip. We'll be brief on this one. I just thought it was cool. Lisa Leslie, one of the greatest hoopers to do it, was interviewing Brittany Griner, and she asked a question that was a poetic, I would say, because Lisa Leslie was the first woman to dunk in an WNBA game many moons ago. I think it was 2002. Brittany Griner obviously wasn't the first woman to dunk in the WNBA. She was, however, the first woman to dunk in Unrivaled, the new league that is women owned, women powered. I do think that's a super dope concept. It's not even a concept anymore. They brought it to life. So Brittany Griner, the first woman to dunk in Unrivaled, coming from Elisa Leslie, first woman to dunk in the WNBA. I thought that was pretty dope. That reminds. You sent me the Michael Jordan versus LeBron. Said LeBrinda James and LeBrinda James Jr. repeat 3 times as WNBA champions.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, now that was funny. But now that she's a dream, I want to pay a little more attention to Brittany Griner. I hadn't really heard a lot from her since she finally made it back from Russia, man. I'm glad she made it home. So I have a lot else to say on that. Just, shouting out another Atlanta athlete, another highway.
Yeah. I did get the pleasure of seeing Maya Moore dunk in person at a dunk contest for a high school basketball tournament when we were seniors. She took an alley-oop one-handed off her point guard, yam that thing. Very impressive, especially for like a 6'1" female. But yeah.
It's Leslie and Brittany Griner are much taller than Maya Moore. Oh man, I know she's fulfilled, and we've talked about it before. But man, I would have loved to see Maya Moore get the limelight that these other players have gotten, like Asia Wilson, even before her, right? Like Sue Bird, Diana Taurasi. Maya Moore would have crushed all of their accolades, but she, God gave her another purpose. So shout out to that.
Yeah, I also think it would be really dope to just see what her impact is on the current state of the game, right? Because the WNBA is in such a era of growth, and they're really, just reaching unprecedented levels. And it would have been cool just to see Maya and, how she would have added to that and elevated even where they are today. But, like you said, she's fulfilled in her purpose. I just had to throw out that note because, I always hear people talk about, well, the WNBA is boring and it's because they're not dunking and this and that. And to me, I don't really think that while it would be cool to see that part of the game change and adapt, I don't really feel that that's necessarily what the WNBA is missing.
It's not. Right. I think a high power shooter like Caitlin Clark does a lot of good. Not to say that she's the first person to be able to do that, but there was a point made. I don't know who the former player is that's on Gil's house, Gilbert Arenas' podcast. But she said she was commenting on something that Michael Porter Jr. said. He was talking about that, right? I think Shaq has said it as well. Lower the rim so they can dunk. She was like, okay, so you lower the rims, but then we can't shoot because we've been shooting on 10-foot goals our entire life.
Yeah, she also said some mess about Michael Porter Jr. not dunking, and then,
he doesn't dunk a whole lot.
Not a lot, but
he can put one away.
He still yams it from time to time.
Yeah.
But yeah, actually, that clip is what I was thinking about specifically.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah. Anyways, shout out Brittany Griner. Congratulations on being the first woman to dunk in the Unrivaled League. We'll see how long that league, if it has legs and, if there's some growth there. I definitely agree. It's a dope concept / reality, right? In their inaugural season. But yeah, shout out Brittany Griner. She is a dream.
One inaugural season to another, man. The TGL. We got a championship, Atlanta. We got one, baby. The Atlanta Drive. Perfect for a Spaghetti Junction segment. Won the inaugural season of the TGL. So I've seen clips I've never watched a full match, but I did some reading on it, and they were saying how like that arena that they play in. I wanted to go to one. I'm like, man, I wonder where do they set these up? And there's only one. They play them all at a SoFi built arena out in Cali, and it's specifically customized for this sport. So they kind of went all in more than I thought they did.
Yeah, I saw some. So I haven't watched any of the actual games, just to be clear. But I did matches whatever. But I did see like a behind the scenes kind of tour of the playing arena, and there's some cool tech to it with how they incorporated the it's basically video game golf, right? Like it's simulation golf, but they can adjust the greens and they can do all this manipulation on the real surface to add an additional layer to the game, which I think is cool. And I think it did decently well in terms of ratings. I think they averaged, I think it was 900,000 viewers, which if you compare to some of the biggest watched football games in college this year, like those had 14 million viewers. So I mean, it's a big difference, but I still think, yeah, I still think 900,000 to a million in its peak is not anything to laugh at. So I think they did pretty well, and for the Atlanta Drive to be the inaugural champions, I think that's awesome. I was gonna ask you, like, what do you think this does in terms of the curse, the city of Atlanta's championship curse? We've got a World Series, we've got 2 Georgia national championships, we got an Atlanta United MLS Cup, and we now have a TGL championship in the last, since 2017, I guess 2018 or 19 was the MLS Cup. So in like a 7-year span, we've got a few championships.
Only 2 of those matter. MLS Cup and the World Series. The other ones matter, right?
To me, the dogs matters probably the most.
And the dogs. So I don't. The curse is broken. It's just who's gonna be the last person over the hump? Will it be the Hawks or will it be the Falcons? I have no idea at this point.
I think probability-wise, the Falcons will win one before the Hawks. That's just my take. But interestingly, Arthur Blank owns both United and TGL. And
does he own the TGL team?
Yeah, he does.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so he has 2 championships. I know he would kill for a Super Bowl.
And trade them both 10 times over for a Super Bowl championship.
Yeah, probably.
Super Bowl, right?
But because he is the owner, right, there were some fun clips at the finals where Michael Penix was actually present to watch. And there's a really funny clip of Arthur Blank introducing Michael Penix and Michael Vick. Did you see the clip?
Yeah, Mike meeting Mike. They both had comments. It was cool. I liked it. They're both left-handed. Vic made that point. I thought him saying that Michael Penix was a lot more accurate. He's like, yeah, you got one quarterback who's a lot more accurate was a big compliment coming from him, because his Atlanta Falcons days, he had a lot of drops. It wasn't that he was inaccurate. That thing has some zip to it, man. Like Algie Crumpler, I just remember him dropping so many balls. Him and Michael Jenkins.
He threw that thing with some sauce.
Oh yeah, had some heat on it for sure. But then Michael Penix coming back and say, yeah, one of them ran a lot better than the other one too. I thought that was cool. and well, he felt it seemed like he was comfortable, right, eating his nachos there with his billionaire boss and his future Hall of Fame predecessor.
Yeah,
it was cool. Yeah.
What I kind of took note of was kind of the awkward nature in which Arthur introduces him. He says something like, "Michael, I want you to meet, another former quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons." It's like, you got to be born, I don't know what the saying is, but under a rock. You got to live under a rock if you're a quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons and you don't know who Michael Vick is, right? Like, I just thought it was funny and awkward, just kind of the way that old Arthur made the introduction.
That's the word. I was thinking like this, like somebody's granddad trying to, get his grandson a friend. Right? Hey, Michael, meet Michael. Like, no, I know Michael. We went to school together. He coaches my football team, right?
Right.
Some silly old man antics. He probably thought it was funny.
Yeah, but it's cool. I think, I don't know. We don't live in another city, but I think it's real cool how Atlanta sports teams, clubs, support one another, right? Like having Vic and Penix at the TGL to watch the finals, all the gear that they give each other to support the teams. You see on game day, players from one team wearing the other team's jerseys and things like that. I just think it's real cool how the city kind of gets together and is united, at least on the sports franchises, and how they honor one another. It's real cool.
Yeah, we touched on that 2 weeks ago, talking about the spike, right? How like the stars from the other teams have all done it. And then I looked up a video that I was supposed to tag. I didn't do it. CeeLo made the inaugural video of the spike. Did you know that?
I knew he was a big United fan, but I did not know that he made the video.
I'll still tag that. I'm gonna tag that in the older video and let y'all know. This was not on the bingo card. Arthur Blank's wife. She is 57. He's 82.
I mean, so
Bill Belichick, that's where I'm going. His rude girlfriend is 24 years old. And Bill is, I think he's 76.
Yeah, he's old. I was gonna say Bill's doing it better, but I'm tired of seeing that 28-3 nonsense. We're past 28-3 or 3-28. We're past March 28th, so we'll let that one ride.
Well, she I'm just playing. It is it's not amusing, but it's to see these old men with these young women. It's just kind of like, what? I guess that's the thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, why not?
Won't be our thing, though.
I'm a one woman man.
Yeah, we're gonna have our old wives when we're old.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man. Well,
this has been another episode, segment, whatever you want to call it, a Spaghetti Junction, news that you can use. We appreciate all y'all listening. Hit that like, subscribe, rate, review, leave us a comment, and follow us on our socials. We got Players Ball Pod at Instagram and TikTok. I hope y'all have seen the most recent kind of reels, promos, videos, TikToks our social media manager has put out there. They're a must watch. So appreciate y'all listening and can't wait to see you in the next one.
Go Tetas Rangers.
Peace.
From the gridiron to the hardwood, you know you got to keep your eyes on the birds. Let's talk Hawks. Let's talk Falcons. This is Hootie Hoo. Hootie Hoo. We back, man. This time we're not gonna talk about them birds. Not a whole lot to report there. We're gonna talk about the Hawks. I've made my opinions known of the national media. I don't like them. They don't like my teams. I think that's where we stand. And I don't think it's going to get any better because we have players on our teams doing significant things that we'll get into that just are not getting coverage, right? I'm going to give you some things that you probably hadn't even heard of. But we're going to start with, we found an interesting clip from, oh man, it's an Atlanta-based podcast. I had to think of their name. I can't think of it right now, but they had Lemon Pepper Lou on as a guest, and he made a comment about Trae Young that I thought was real interesting, and I thought it was accurate. Maddie, cut to the clip. Just playing. We're not gonna share the clip, but the comment was that he said Trae catches all this flack. And he thinks it's partially because he doesn't have a wingman. He thinks that's unfair, right? He named LeBron. He has one of the best wingmen
has had a wingman.
Has always had a wingman. Even you go back through all the Lakers. Kobe's always had wingmen. You know, whether it was Shaq or whether it was Paul Gasol, he had a heavy hitter on the team. Right now, you got Anthony Edwards. Kevin Durant has two. Like the era of the big three never really stopped, but you at least have two people, right? With the pairing of like Kyrie and Luka. Now Luka and LeBron. Trae's never had a guy. I think that's what they were going for with DJ Murray last year, but he's not. He's not one of them dudes.
DJ is not a household name like any of those guys that you just mentioned, right?
A fellow all-star. Like he had got his all-star nod, but I think he was a replacement, which, you know, is not quite there, right?
Yeah, I mean, he had a good season. I'm not saying he's a bad player, but when you look at Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, like those guys are on another level. You look at LeBron and Luka, like those names are just different, right? You look at
Anthony Davis, right?
Yeah.
Joker, Jamal Murray.
Exactly where I was going. Steph and Kyrie, or Steph and
Clay,
and Clay,
Steph, Jimmy.
Steph, Draymond, like all of those guys were just a different level than a Trae, DeJounte Murray is what I was getting at. Yeah. It's the Water Boys.
DeJounte just wasn't quite, if I'm being completely honest, he wasn't quite on Trae's level to be called like a dynamic duo.
No, and unfortunately,
they were more Batman and Robin than Batman Superman is what we need.
And unfortunately, their games just weren't complementary, right? Like, ideally, you have like the Joker, Jamal Murray, where their games are complementary. You got the Draymond with Steph, like the enforcer, and then the finesse, right? Like you have the yin and the yang, and we had just the yin and the yin.
You got Giannis, and they went out and got Dame before Dame.
Drew Holiday
Drew Holiday. Chris Middleton was on and off, but Drew Holiday was a big piece for them. Yeah, they haven't done that for Trae.
They also had Lopez, brother.
Yeah, Brooks Lopez.
I mean, they had pieces, but they haven't done that for Trae. To your point, I was gonna say the name of the podcast. Got to shout them out, the Water Boys.
The Water Boys, yeah, they do some funny clips.
They do, but I thought it was interesting coming from Lou. You know, he's an Atlanta native. Went South Gwinnett High School. Went NBA fresh out of high school when you could still do that. We played, you know, against him every year. Met him in the region championship. He's a big name locally, right? Sixth man of the year. Long NBA career. For him to just come out and just flat out say, like, one of the reasons why Trey is public enemy number one is because he's got no one else to be the scapegoat. Really, right? Like that's the brunt of his rationale, is that, you know, Trey is the only one, and because he's the only star, he's the only one that's going to take the heat, and it's unfair for Trey. But he also, Lou goes on to say that the Hawks have a decision they have to make, and I know there's a decision that you want them to make and I want them to make, but he puts it point blank. They have one of two things they can do. They can either go out and get Trey a number 2 or a number 2 and 3, or they can let him walk and let him go find that somewhere else. And I think that's a harsh reality.
It is. I mean, I don't think, I think it has a time limit on it, right? If you don't do one, the other's going to happen. Trae Young isn't going to stick around forever, dealing with the same pieces. Now, I do like what they've built. There was a question raised today that said, if you could get KD here, but you had to lose some pieces, would you do it? Would you bring KD into the fold? I don't think KD is the answer. But the way that they were talking about it on the radio show, this was Dylan's take, was that he doesn't want to break up the core that they're building with Trey, Dyson Daniels, Jalen Johnson, and Ricochet. He doesn't want to break that up to bring in a star. I won't go that far, right? I trade Jalen Johnson right now for the right player, straight up. I like what we got in Ricochet. He's younger. So far, he's healthier. If we can bring in a star and we had to part with Jalen Johnson, I wouldn't be mad at it. Now, I wouldn't do that for KD, but is there a person that you would do that for? What do you think the Hawks need, and what star would fit that need?
So, to be honest, I don't disagree with you in Jalen. I like Jalen a lot, but health is definitely a concern at this point. When he's on the field or on the court, he's dynamic and he's electric and he's fun to watch. I go back. I've said this many times. If I'm going to hold on to Jalen, right, I'm going after a big man. I'm going after a Wembanyama. You're not going to get Joker, but Joker. I mean, I'd take a Giannis, like some big athletic, power forward or center.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of where I go.
Could not agree more. And I'm going there, keeping that core or breaking it up. Right. So I actually want to keep Trey, Dyson. I want to keep Jalen too. Jalen is a beast. But I think if you keep that core, you need a 5. You need an all-star 5 or somebody that's a 4 that could kind of defend the 5 type situation, like a Giannis. I don't think Giannis would be impossible. I would love to see Giannis in a Hawks jersey. It was supposed to happen a long time ago when Bud really wanted to draft him. He left that next year to go coach Milwaukee.
The Giannis thing, I think, yeah, he's one of my favorite players. I've said that before. So him in a Hawks jersey would be a dream come true. I think with the situation and his story, I find it really hard to see him leaving Milwaukee. I just do. He has a lot of love for Milwaukee and the risk that they took on him and what they've done for him and his family. If you haven't seen the movies, that kind of documentaries about him and his life growing up and his journey to the NBA, I think watching those, you would kind of get the same sense that I have, is like, if he leaves Milwaukee, it won't be his decision, kind of. thing. But yeah, I mean,
Was he a champion in the documentary or any of the documentaries that he watched?
no, it was before his championship, I believe.
To me, that not to say that he was just indebted. It sounds like he feels indebted to the city. And if he does, I think bringing Milwaukee a championship
Pays that debt.
Debt paid, baby. Come on down to the A.
hey, I'm with it. But in
I
turn,
couldn't think of another center though, right? Like if Embiid didn't, if he could come on a 1-year deal, like if we could sign him to a Matthew Judon deal to see if he can get back on the horse for a year, I think he'd be a perfect fit. But I'm with you. I do want a center or a big power forward.
yeah, I'd have to do some more digging on names at that position. But I think like a Wemby, even though like that's not going to happen, or Chet Holmgren, or even like a Zach Edey, I still think makes his team better. He's not the bona fide all-star name, household name that we were talking about, but he's on his way, I think. But yeah, I think out of all the players, Jalen to me would be the easiest to move. Him and Onyeka. I want
because they're good. I don't want to shortchange them. It's because they have value. It's specifically Jalen.
It's because they have value, but to me, it's more about preserving the Trae Young, Dyson Daniels, and Zachary Richichet core.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the more important core.
I agree. I mean, I don't know what their record is without Jalen Johnson, but it doesn't seem like it changed much up or down.
I believe their record as of today is 36-38. So they're still 2 games below 500. But they are sitting at 7th in the league. I think they're 4 games behind the Bucks, who they beat last night. So it's not out of the realm of possibilities to get to the 6th seed. It's unlikely, but it's not out of the realm of possibilities. So they're playing good enough basketball to be in the playoff.
Yeah, and to just have 1 game in the play-in would be great. Now Orlando is that's a tough out, but I think we can beat them. We play them 2 more times, which is crazy. They did say it's more of a foregone conclusion that we end up either 7th or 8th, which either means we play Orlando at home or we play Orlando in Orlando for that 1 game.
I hope it's at home for the city of Atlanta. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think you've seen a lot of growth over the course of this year from Trae. We're seeing a hell of a return on Dyson Daniels, and then Zach being the young, the teenager. We've seen a lot of growth in him. We've talked about, unfortunately, his growth and his minutes were due to the Jalen Johnson injury, but I think in long term, that's going to be a blessing for us. And you brought it to my attention, but he's on the verge of doing something that only 2 other players in NBA history have done at his age, and that is 100+ threes, 50+ steals, and 30+ blocks in a single season. The other 2 names, Jason Tatum and Anthony Edwards. That's pretty elite company, if you ask me.
Yeah, that's elite company. There's no other way to say it, right? LeBron ain't even on that list. But you see those 2 names and you see what they're doing now, and obviously that's not how math works, progression works, but it's very encouraging to see that, plus the way he's finished out the month of March. I mean, I think if he wins NBA Player of the Month or NBA Rookie of the Month, he should win Rookie of the Year. He's making a good fight for that. I was looking at the former rookies of the years. They had won multiple months. Right now, everyone has won a single month. He will be the first to repeat, at least in the East, I remember. So it'd be good for him to accomplish that. There's a lot happening, right? He's in the running for that, right? To be on the list to be the third man on a list of an accomplishment that's ever been done in the NBA is a big deal. He could also win Rookie of the Year. You got Dyson Daniels, who is leading the league in steals by a mile. He just broke the Atlanta Hawks franchise record for steals in a given season, held by the late great Mookie Blaylock. Shout out Mookie. And then that's where I circle back to my displeasure in listening to and battling with the national media, because they don't have him in the running for Defensive Player of the Year still, right? It was Wemby's award to lose, and then he got injured, and he no longer meets the minimum game standard. So then that opened up the playing field. Our boys making all kinds of records, setting trends. We are not an elite defense, but we are miles ahead of where we were last year.
He's got the highest average steals per game since 1988-89 in the NBA.
Yeah. So tell me why Draymond Green, who, he's throwing shots. We beat them without Steph, and he's talking about, this is a game we should have picked up. Like, man, get out of here. I ain't trying to hear that from you. And now he's the odds man to win Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah,
I don't get it, man. I do get it, because the national media loves the Golden State Warriors. I love Steph Curry too. But that don't mean that Draymond gets to fly on his coattails to another Defensive Player of the Year. He's definitely earned the ones that he won. I'm not trying to take that away from him, but this year it feels like this is Dyson Daniels' award, and to give it to somebody else would be expected but fraudulent.
It is 100% thievery if he doesn't win it. But I will say, even though the national media isn't giving him his flowers and they may rob him of that accolade, I think, by and large, people are paying attention. Like the non-casuals are paying attention, right? He is getting some recognition. He just signed a 4-year shoe contract with Adidas. He's joining his boy Trey over at Adidas. But like with his success, there are some rewards are following, right? So I think it would be poor of us to just 100% just bash the media saying he's not getting respect. When he's just not getting all the respect that he deserves, right? Like there are
he's not getting respect from the media. He's getting it from businesses. People are making sound decisions because he deserves the recognition.
Yeah.
ESPN is not talking about Dyson Daniels nearly as much as they should. CBS Sports ain't doing it. Fox Sports ain't doing it. And because of that, that's why I'm saying the national media is trash, man. The what did Chuck call them? Those knuckleheads. He called them idiots. Those idiots over at ESPN.
They're about to be his boss.
Talking about the Lakers and Golden State when OKC and Cleveland are having like once in a lifetime seasons, right? They're about to do. Cleveland's about to have a record that LeBron James couldn't achieve.
But that's because the Associated Press, the majority of these media companies are based out of New York and Los Angeles, right?
That's it.
It's 100% bias, right? And I think Chuck is 100% based in his assessment, right? Like, everything he says valid.
The other thing that has happened that I haven't seen, I literally looked before we started recording to see if anyone else had mentioned Trae Young's accomplishment of being the youngest player in NBA history to score 12,000 points and record 4,500 assists, passing the one and only LeBron James.
LeBrenda James Jr.
LeBrenda James. Passing LeBron. I couldn't find it anywhere. ESPN didn't talk about it. Only the Hawks social media.
Yeah,
even mentioned it.
Crazy. It's absolutely
crazy.
I think, not to just completely bash the NBA, but they have falling viewership, and I think some of it is just stuff like that, right? Where the league is failing to recognize and capitalize on its stars and just paying attention to some of the higher markets. And, at the end of the day, it's at the detriment of the game.
He's the sixth player. So even if you're just looking at the peers that he was drafted with, he's the sixth player to hit 12,000 since he entered the league in 2018, right? So you got Luka, probably Shea. Like his draft was actually really strong. I don't know if Anthony Edwards has 12K yet, but for it to just go unnoticed is crazy. Like this article that I'm looking at now is Athlon Sports. Let's see if this Sports Illustrated talks about it. Burying in the lead. And then they used the Hawks social media post as the picture to talk about it. Come on, SI. It doesn't make sense, man. It does not make sense.
It doesn't.
But shout out the Hawks, man. The Hawks are doing big things. We are not a championship team yet, so I know we have some growth opportunity, but I've seen a lot out of them this season that gives me encouragement.
Yeah, I got to give them credit because I've been pretty critical of this team this year, but I think given all the adversity that they've encountered through injuries and other things, they have really, I don't want to say they've made the most of it, because that could be better. Yeah, that's putting a ceiling on what they're capable of. But I think that they've done a good job of adapting and improving and fighting and getting better. And so we'll just have to wait and see. Anything can happen in a playoff environment. Are you expecting them to win a championship? Absolutely not. But we want to carry some momentum into next year.
March Madness picks, fiddlesticks, Hawks in 6. Have you seen those Shannon Sharps?
No.
Lakers in 5. You haven't seen Lakers in 5?
No.
Oh man, yeah, you gotta go check some of them out, man. I'm gonna drop another Hawks in 6 next week, just so it'll be after you watched it.
All right, I'll check it out.
Yeah, man. All right, we're gonna close out this segment, man, and move on to the next. We love giving y'all the worthwhile content, so we're gonna keep doing it, man. It's fun for us, so we appreciate y'all being with us. Like, follow, subscribe, check out the socials. Got content pumping out. The famous Rick Grimes made an appearance this week, so we got some other stuff coming for y'all.
All right, man. Appreciate it. This has been another Hootie Hoo. Peace.
From the parking garage to the penthouse, no one takes you on more highs and lows than Atlanta sports. Let's me, you, your mama, and your cousin too get on this elevator. Don't touch the button. We got you locked in.
On today's episode of Elevators, we're coming at you with one that's just been an up and down emotional roller coaster for what feels like 365 days now. And that's the Braves. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Mostly ugly for the start of this year. We kicked it off last week out in San Diego, where we ended our season last year, and we started 0-4. I think this is the worst 4-game start for the Braves that I can remember. And to cherry on top it, we ended it with 2 straight shutouts. So that's just kind of a preview of kind of the bad. I'll try and give you a little bit of good, even though there's not much.
The elevator is headed towards the basement, is what you're saying. Maybe we go back up, though, right? We might make it to the first floor.
You know, they are playing right now against the all-world Dodgers, and I have not checked to see if what that score is. So we might, not a whole lot of oh, no, it was 2-0 Dodgers in the third.
I was about to say, don't look.
Man. But I will say, to give some positives, right? It is a long season. That is just series number 1. We've got a long ways to go. We're still missing some of our key cogs, right? Spencer Strider and Ronald Acuna Jr., they're still rehabbing their last year injuries. Spencer did make a rehab start today, or not today, recently in AAA Gwinnett. He went 3 innings, had 1 earned run, allowed 2 hits, and he struck out 6. It was kind of a rocky start. I think he gave up the run early on a RBI double. I think he hit a batter, but then he settled in and retired 4 out of the last 6 batters, or 4 out of the last 5 batters that he saw. So up and down start, but good, promising, right? Rehabbing, getting closer and closer to getting back to health. Ronnie, we still don't know when we'll see him, but just from his social media posts and questions that he's answered, it sounds like he would go today if they'd let him, that he's feeling good, but they're just trying to be cautious with him, especially coming off of a second ACL. So those are positive things to look forward. And then as far as recency, I don't think the starting pitching, except for, let's say, AJ Smith-Shawver, I think overall the starting pitching against the Padres was pretty decent. We were in 3 of those games, had opportunities to win, but we didn't get the job done ultimately. So I do think those are good things that we can build on. You know, how you feeling?
I'm really upset with the Padres specifically because it's been 6 straight losses at their crib, and that just doesn't feel like. I mean, that's a lot worse than 4 to do 6. And the last 2 were like really meaningful games in the playoffs, right? We were hurt, but I'm hurt now based off of our start. And I agree with the good that you mentioned, right? The starting pitching did look decent. I think Chris Sale, Ronaldo Lopez, Schwellenbach went. They'll be in the rotation all year. Hopefully AJ Smith-Shawver, can remain up there, but we'll see how that works out. Is today a bullpen game? Do you know? Grant Holmes started, and I thought Grant Holmes was a reliever. Eastbound, Mr. Eastbound and Down.
He is, I think, a reliever, but he has made some starts. He made some starts for us last year, but he is typically a reliever, long reliever. So I don't know if it's a traditional.
Early for it to be a bullpen game, like, come on, man. What are they doing? What did they do in spring training that they're still working out the kinks?
Or I can tell you what AA did not do in the offseason. And that was bring in some talent. Yeah, I think it's just been a struggle. You brought up, getting to some more of the bad, right? and some might even call it ugly. I think those two kind of gel together at this point when it comes to the Braves. But Ronaldo Lopez hit the 15-day IL today with shoulder inflammation. They recalled Bryce Elder in his steadfast. So I think the Grant Holmes thing is a lack of arms, right? You're down Spencer Strider. Now you're down Ronaldo Lopez. You're down a few others. Joe Jimenez. Trying to remember who all, but there's several that are on the IL, and so I think that's what's going on with the Grant Holmes decision today. Now we did let go or trade Ian Anderson, so he's no longer an option. I don't think he was pitching all that well to begin with. You know, AJ Smith-Shawver's a young guy that they're having start. The other options would be like Hurston Waldrop, who made his MLB debut last year. He's still a young potential starter for the future. So it's just one of those situations. I don't think this is a long term, but it is our short term reality in terms of our pitching struggles. And their struggles. Hector Neris was DFA'd today. He made it one series, had a 4.78 ERA. And we brought back, like I said, Bryce Elder to fill in the shoes of Ronaldo Lopez. And then good old Uncle Jesse. We're returning him to the bullpen for Hector Neris. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting. I would not be surprised if we leave the West Coast with a big donut in the win column.
0-7 would be gross, bro. Like, it'd be terrible. To the point where I don't think we come back from it. Early season prediction. We're out of the playoffs at 0-7. We can never make it back.
I mean, I know you're being a little tongue in cheek, but it would be gross. And we've had discussions, long debates, some heated, but I think in the vast majority we agree that being owned by a media company and not by an individual is really a problem for us, especially a publicly traded entity with shareholders, and they're more worried about the bottom line than they are wins and losses. Although, you know, we've talked about recently how some of that goes hand in hand, right? It's not just the name on the front of the jersey, but it's the names on the back of the jerseys that matter. And ultimately, you can lose, but you can only lose for so long before that fan base closes their pocketbook and you start losing money. So I hope it doesn't come to an 0-7, but I hope that there's enough adversity that someone breaks out the checkbook. I don't know what you can go get now, right? I think you're gonna have to do some work on the trade market, but we need to bust out the wallets and start paying for some talent, because this is going to be unacceptable if what we're seeing early becomes the trend.
How long is the season? How long does it feel if we start 0-7? To me, that's like, oh wow, I can stop watching for the next 2 months and just get back into it in June. Like maybe I'll start watching the Braves when Ronnie returns, and that'll be the turn that we need. All right, it just feels like baseball is way too long. It's gonna feel a lot longer if we start with no wins in the first 2 series.
I think it's the opposite, because you play 180 games and you basically play every night from late March to October if you get there, right? Like there's just so much baseball that people don't feel like these early games matter, right? Like there's not a whole lot of weight placed on them. But as a fan, right, like you don't want to lose at any point in time. But think about teams like the Oakland A's and the Chicago White Sox that were historically bad, that lost 90 games, right? Like
I think the White Sox, one of those two teams, started off 0-4 last year, and they went on to have the worst record in the season.
Yeah, 0-7 would be 0-7 would be gross, like you said. I don't think there's any other word to describe it, but I don't think it would be that dire, as dire as just like throwing in the towel.
Yeah, I think the Mets lost 3 games. The Phillies won 2 of their 3 on the road, so we are 4 games behind already, or 3 games behind already, but we'll see how it shakes out, man. It just it dulls, opening day, opening week is supposed to be like a time of excitement. Like the boys are back in town. The boys are back in town. I want them to leave. Like go back to Florida, man. Y'all got to work out a little bit more before y'all come back to town.
Yeah,
don't come to the A with opening day and be getting shut out. Ain't nobody trying to see that.
And I was gonna say on that, at least we're away, right? And this isn't like our home opening series that we got, swept. So I do think that if we say we win 1 or 2 games out west or none, and we come home and we start to win a few at home, I think some of that energy and excitement would pick up, even coming off of that kind of brutal West Coast trip. But I mean, you're talking about the Dodgers, you're talking about the Padres, both playoff teams, both predicted to make deep runs again this year. It's not like we're out there losing to the White Sox.
Our pre-draft power ranking was 3rd. We do not look like the 3rd best team in baseball. Not even close. And I know we're not whole, and I know it's super early. 7-0 would be bad. So say we lose all 7. Then we come home, we face the Marlins. I think the Marlins are an inferior team. They do have a stud on the mound, so maybe they get a game. So that takes us to 2-8 before we run into the Phillies at home. And I just don't think that bodes well. They're not the team that you're turning around on.
No.
So we're looking at 2-11 to start the season. Now that is something where I'm like, oh man, yeah, something's got to give.
Yeah, I don't. I was thinking about this earlier today. So 2 years ago, right, had an amazing offensive year. We're chasing the single season home run record, right? Amazing year at the plate, up and down the lineup. Last year, they went cold. And people just instantly were like, oh, well, it was just a bad year. We fire the hitting coach and, start fresh. And the expectation is that they'll kind of return to form from the previous year. And so far, 4 games in, we're batting 142 as a team. Our on-base percentage is 246. Like, it's just nothing's changed from last year. And I'm starting to feel like maybe last year was more of the norm and the year before was the outlier and not the other way around. And, analytics, it's great. It's an amazing tool, and I want to talk about it a little later in another topic. But it can also bite you, right? Because the stats don't always tell the whole story, and there is no true thing as causation. Correlation is just a suggesting that 2 things are related. And so I say all that to say, if you're just a purely analytic stat based team, and you're looking at those 2023 batting numbers and expecting that to just be who these guys are, that might have been fool's gold.
I agree with you, and I think most people, I don't think most people expected that to become the norm, but I think they wanted us to be closer to that than we have been. Like, we've fallen way further down than most people expect. And I know it's just 4 games, but it literally feels like a continuation of last year. Like, we went back into we literally went back into the Padres' house where our season ended, and lost 4 more games. And we had an injury. We had the relief blow a game. And then we had the bats go just ice cold on the back half of that 4-game series. It feels like that last season didn't end more than a new one has begun, and I think that's very unfortunate.
It is very unfortunate, and just to get into the ugly, the dirty, Jurickson Profar, right? He was our big name signing. Came from the Padres, right? Had a breakout season last year. They brought him in. Expect big things out of him, and I mean, like I said before, the season is still young. But we leave San Diego, head north to Los Angeles, and we get the news that Jurickson Profar is suspended for 80 games for violating the MLB substance policy. He tested positive for HCG. He's released a statement, saying how it's been the hardest day of his baseball career, that he never would have knowingly, taken a banned substance, given his, apology, and, just the standard publicity, PR requirement when something like this happens. And then the Braves, also had their release statement about their disappointment. But I think this is huge, potentially, for this team, for what it means moving forward. 80 games is what?
Half the season.
Not quite half the season, but
162 games. He's missing one. Man, he's gone for half the season.
Yeah, that's rough.
That's this. I think when you told me earlier, in my head, I heard a lower number. That's devastating, right? Money Mike was already out there by himself. He was supposed to come in and continue his his upward trend that he had offensively, but he was also supposed to help in the outfield. And now we gotta keep Jared Kelenic out there again. We're gonna throw.
Hey, he's got a home run this year.
All right, we'll see if he can get another one. He had one last year, didn't he? Like, his bat was one of the coldest bats last year. Who are we gonna put in the outfield for half of a season? Right? To your point, we don't know when Ronnie's coming back.
Brian De La Cruz, I think, is who's out there tonight. Yeah, no, it's devastating.
It is the ugly. I thought all of it was ugly. Now, 80 games from someone that you just got.
Yeah, there's still
the only addition that you had is that's a tough look, man.
They
fire AA.
They're on the hook. They're on the hook for $35 million.
Because baseball is fully guaranteed, right?
Yeah. I mean, he's going to lose out on some money just for the games. But he's still, like I said, going to make that $35 million that's due to him in his contract. I don't know what the Braves do with him long term, right? Like, that's a pretty big stain on your reputation. And for a team that counted on you pretty heavily, right? The only real signing of the offseason, and for you to disappoint with something like this, even if it's an accident, right? It's just you're a professional. You got to know better. Now, you teased AA, fire him now. I think the seats got to be getting warm for AA, and I think it's slightly unfair, but that's what he signed up for. I think it's unfair only from the standpoint of I don't think Liberty Media is allowing him to do what he needs to do. I think they are hard capping what he can spend, and for that reason, AA is making the moves that he's making or not making the moves that he's making, right? But to that same token, that those are the cards that you're dealt and you got to maximize them, and I don't think right now he is. So that seat's got to be heating up.
This is completely off base, but Taylor Jenkins, he was an assistant. He was the head coach of the Memphis Grizzlies. He's on the Coach Bud coaching tree. So he was an assistant here in Atlanta before, not immediately before, but he had a stop here, so it's relevant. They fired him. They're currently in 5th place in the West. He didn't have job for like 20 games. They're still performing, and they cut him. They fired him 3 weeks before the playoffs start. It wouldn't even be unprecedented at this point. I'm not suggesting that. I agree with everything you said as far as him being handcuffed a little bit. But I think the leashes are very short these days for GMs and head coaches, and he's going to have to turn some things around probably this season.
I've seen some things. I haven't verified any sources, but I have heard a rumor that this could be Brian Snicker's last, that he could retire after this season. And I wouldn't blame him with the way that last year was and the way this season has kicked off.
I thought Snit signed a multi-year extension.
He may have, but that doesn't mean he can't retire.
He can still retire. Yeah.
He's got himself a ring. He's worked in the organization for a long time. Like, if he decides that he wants to go enjoy it the rest with his family, I know he's got a son that's in the coaching career in the MLB. I think he's like an assistant. If he wants to go enjoy that time with his family, his grandkids, whatever, I wouldn't blame him. But all right, so it's still Braves, right? I kind of teased it a little bit when I was talking about analytics, and I think it's relevant because our hitting is so atrocious that at this point I'm willing to try anything. And so it's made a lot of noise recently, mainly due to the New York Yankees having a breakout 15 home run in 3 games, 9 in a single game on Saturday in a 20-9 victory against the Brewers. It's a franchise single game record for a baseball organization that has a 122-year history. 9 home runs in a single game is their franchise record. But with all that happening, this has made national headlines. But torpedo bats. Are you familiar?
Yeah, so I heard about it. I hadn't seen one. I just looked. When I first heard it, I thought of the Vortex bat. You remember the plastic bat? It was translucent. You could see through it.
Yeah.
It was basically a home run bat. Right? So that's what popped into my head when I heard it. He doesn't look exactly like that. But yeah, I have heard of it, and it was attached to the Yankees when I heard about it.
Okay, so the reason why, beyond just the torrid home run hitting that the Yankees have been doing, it's also linked to the team because there was a MIT physicist named Aaron Lenny Leonhardt. He was an analyst for the Yankees. He's the one that kind of came up with this concept. And if you think back to physics, right? F equals ma, or force equals mass times acceleration. So what they were doing with these torpedo bats is they wanted to move the mass of the bat to whichever spot the batter hit on a more regular basis. So I believe it was Anthony Volpe who they noticed was making contact with the ball closer to the label, towards the hands. So in theory or in concept, you would move the majority of the mass lower to where they're making contact. I think it's pretty brilliant, actually, but it's made a lot of headlines. There's controversy. Baseball is a very old-fashioned game, right? Hasn't changed a lot in 100 years. Instituting a pitch clock and all these things were like massive changes to the game. So with that, I think the purists, the baseball purists would say the Yankees and anyone else using these so-called torpedo bats are cheating. How do you feel about that?
This is more egregious to me than the tush push.
Explain.
To change the bat. Because it's something that everyone can do. So it's not like they got a secret hitting technique. They implemented a piece of equipment that is designed to make the ball travel further. I guess if everyone can do it, it's not cheating, but that definitely feels cheap to me. And you're hitting it with this big chunky bulge in the bat.
It's weird.
It just feels weird.
It definitely feels weird. Now, the MLB's rules actually state that a bat shall be a smooth, round stick, not more than 2.61 inches in diameter at the thickest part, and not more than 42 inches in length. And it has to be one solid piece of wood. So, essentially, as long as the fattest part of the bat isn't more than 261, it doesn't necessarily designate where that fat part of the bat has to be. So I do kind of agree with your assessment on like how it cheapens the game a little bit, how it takes some of the skill, right? I mean, you still have to hit the ball.
Yeah, you still got to hit the ball.
But it is designed specifically to make the ball go further, right? You don't have to barrel it the same way you used to, right? So that's what I mean in terms of it changes the skill level. You don't have to make perfect contact with that barrel where everyone has had to for, the last 100 years. Now we can move that barrel to wherever you are, right? So either way, I agree with your standpoint, but in terms of just like, is it cheating? No, I mean, it's well within the current set of rules, just like the tush push is well within the current rules. There was a point There was a point in time where pushing a player in football was against the rules, and they changed that.
Well within the rules now. This one, I mean, just looking at the bat side by side, it doesn't feel.
It's not natural.
Fair. And I don't. If it's not the Yankees, do you think this is? Is it the same scenario that we're in? Because they're not. I'm reading some of the player comments. They're like, yeah, they hitting home runs like that. Ship these over there. Like they're finding out about it. Like we're finding out about it.
So I don't think that's 100% true. Now the Yankees are the ones that are in the spotlight, but they're not the only team that's been testing these or trying to do something along the same lines with modifying bats over the last few years. But this is the first time we're really seeing it in action in regular season play, right? Like there was some stuff done in spring training, I believe, last year, and I don't think it would be getting the attention that it's getting if it wasn't the Yankees and if they weren't doing what they're doing statistically.
It does look like there have been 4 non-Yankees players that used it this season.
Yeah.
But it was like, I mean, I think there were 4 Yankees that used it. So these are all on other teams. Orioles have a guy. Blue Jays have a guy. Twins have a guy. And then the Rays have a guy that's using it.
Would you be in favor of the Braves using it until they ban them? If they ban them?
Braves can't get a bat on the ball regardless of the size of it at this point. So, yeah, try it. What could it hurt? You're just striking out anyway.
I will say one of the guys that has kind of openly said he's not using one is Aaron Judge. And
what did he say? He said, I think my bat's working just fine.
He's not wrong.
He is not.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's, I think it's, like you said, it cheapens the game, trying to find an advantage, but just from like the pure engineer and data guy at heart, like I find it fascinating that someone, Aaron Leonhardt, was looking at the analytics and analyzing swings and where bats were hitting balls, and this is the solution that he came to. Like that whole process I do find fascinating and intriguing, and like, I don't know, it just kind of appeals to my engineer background of finding a problem and solving it.
The fanhood point that you mentioned as well, like that does contribute to baseball excitement, and baseball wants more home runs.
I mean, baseball, MLB has been tinkering with the balls, like deadening baseballs or making baseballs fly further and messing with the formula to change the outcomes for years now, like behind the scenes, and it doesn't get a whole lot of attention. But now teams and players individually are kind of doing the same thing, leveling the playing field. But it looks and feels unnatural and for now wrong, but it could become the standard, right? Like, and that's the thing that I also find interesting about it, is like the Marcus bat and the Matt bat and the Josh bat and the James bat are all different. And if you tried to use my bat or I tried to use your bat, the outcomes may not be the same. Like it's fully personalized to my swing, to my approach.
I would say this, I can see that going both ways though. That's not always a negative, right? I've used somebody else's driver of ball, right? So you can have good experiences with other people's equipment. Generally, yeah, to your point, like they're tailor-made for them, but you can have it, if you do find a little bit of success with somebody else's bat, now you can have yours made like theirs, but to your specifications.
Do you think that this is like in the same vein as, there's been a push over the last several years to like the axe handle bats. You know what I'm talking about? Okay, so traditionally a baseball bat has a knob at the end of it, right? Whereas an axe handle just kind of like tapers and like curves. They've started introducing like these axe handle bats, and some players love them because of the way that you hold it. It's more of that axe feel, versus like that traditional knob. Do you think it's in the same vein? Like it's modifying the piece of equipment to better suit what you're trying to do as a player?
You gripping the bat differently, I don't think has the same effects as enhancing the barrel does.
So
right? Having the axe grip isn't gonna add, I don't believe it's gonna add nearly as much, if any, velocity to the baseball off the bat.
when you say enhancing the barrel, I mean they're still having to fit within the same parameters. They're just moving the fat part of the bat from, you know, it tapering up to the end. Now you've seen them, right? Like you're moving that fat part to, you know, maybe the center and tapering down at the end.
I know this isn't what they did. That does not look like what I'm looking at. It's like they added meat to the bat, to the middle. Right. The top is the same size. The bottom is the same size. This is additional. It's not movement of existing weight. And I know it is, right? But
it looks that way because they had to make the part that you're normally used to seeing as fatter, skinnier. So optically,
this is the Vortex bat. I just can't see through it.
Yeah, I feel you there. But very interesting. We'll see what MLB does. I know it took them years to do something about the sticky stuff, which was, you know, the pitcher's version of the torpedo bat in my mind, right? That spider tack.
They need to just get rid of some of the rules, man. Like I know steroids are bad, but there's people who use them responsibly. Steroids are a thing still, right? In bodybuilding and wrestling, the most exciting time for baseball, still to this day, for me, was the home run derby that was the full season of Mark McGwire versus Sammy Sosa.
So I saw a clip. Or I listened to a clip. It was an interview, Chipper Jones, and he was asked because, you know, Hall of Fame season was kind of upon us, right? Induction season was upon us, and he was asked point blank, you know, what's your take on Barry Bonds? And Chipper said he's the greatest baseball player I've ever seen in my life. And he uses an example. He talked about a series. I don't remember if it was a playoffs or regular season, but Bobby told them all, you know, if there's a base open, we're walking Barry Bonds. And I don't remember what pitcher it was, but it was later in a ball game. There was like 2 outs. Base first was empty, and whoever the pitcher was like, I'm just going to pitch to him. First pitch, he hits it in a Covey Cove for a walk-off home run. Next night, almost identical circumstance. They pitch him one pitch, hits it into Covey Cove, walk-off home run. Chipper said he's never seen Bobby fume so hard. But that moment, and he tells a story to say, like, look at the body of work that Barry Bonds put together. He wasn't seeing, you know, 12 plus pitches a night to hit. He was seeing 1, 2, 3, or none, right? Like he was the automatic base on balls every time up. But you give him one and he'd punish you for it. And steroids doesn't do that. I'm sorry.
It's never done that.
Never. And it never will.
Same thing with Mark McGwire. Now, Aaron Judge is just a monster of a human, right? So he's bringing some excitement. But this is it feels cheap to me because they're doing it in our face, right? They're not really even hiding it. The ball stuff came out. Then you have the resin. Now they're allowing vortex bats. Like, just take the pictures out of it. Put a machine out there, man, and just have games of 20 to 27. I'm with it. To go all the way. What's all this half stepping about?
All right, so they have the Unrivaled League. They have this new TGL. No, we need some venture capitalists. We're gonna start our own baseball league. You heard it right here. We'll come up with a name for it. We'll put the white papers together, and we expect some funds to get this thing kicked off.
Here we go. Did you see, just last thing baseball related, did you see Truist was sold out by the Savannah Bananas?
Yeah, and they had a former Brave join them. Did you see that?
I did not.
Old Charlie Culberson, who is a local from my area, where I'm living now. He went to high school just up the road. Yeah, it was cool. He had fun. He did well apparently in his Savannah Banana debut. I happened to see. I was at Barnes and Noble on Saturday. Tilly had her dance recitals in Rome, and I was at the Barnes and Nobles there, and I was just kind of browsing books, and I saw one, and I was like very tempted to buy it, but it's the story of the Savannah Bananas. I may have to put that on the must-read list because it's an interesting business story, but also a lot of people say they're revolutionizing baseball.
I mean, it's the most fun baseball that you can watch, and I don't think it's close. One of my boys, he actually was he got like pre-order access to get tickets, and he's like, would you want to go? I was like, hell yeah, I want to go. And he got into the queue and it was sold out. He was in there like 5 minutes, sold out.
That's wild.
He was furious. He won't even talk about them anymore.
It's not their fault.
It's very entertaining. It's very funny. And then they have talent as well.
Oh yeah. It's talent, it's entertainment.
It's baseball theater.
I just hope they don't cheapen it up like they've cheapened the Globetrotters, because man, that was disappointing.
I remember that, yeah.
I was very disappointed when we saw them in New Orleans a couple years ago. I wanted to see all the tricks, the high flying acrobatics. I didn't need the pauses in the game for just straight theater.
Yeah.
Like, it would be one thing if it was like in addition to, but it was like it was too corny for my taste.
I think that's a lot of what the Savannah Bananas is. It feels to me like the Globetrotters of baseball.
I know it's meant to be in that same similarities, but I don't think they play the same team every time. So I don't think it's the Savannah Bananas versus, the Generals every night or whatever. And I don't know for certain, but I don't think it's scripted. And I think that they have lost, right? Like, the Globetrotters have never lost. But I think the Savannah Bananas have.
Yeah. I am seeing multiple teams. But just that theater aspect, right? Like they dance, it's a lot of music, it's a spectacle.
Yeah, it's about the entertainment aspect of it, doing the tricks, doing the flair, the music, the dancing, the in between innings entertainment with like mascots and side games and stuff. Yeah, for sure.
But I'm in for it. I'd love to see it in person.
Yeah.
So yeah, we might have to start up our own thing, man.
Absolutely.
But not like gimmicky like that. We're gonna do. They want to see long ball. We're gonna give them long ball.
Simulated baseball in an arena with a moving fence.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
We'll talk offline, but
pitch him out.
Yeah.
Hey, throw some other challenges in there. You got a robot pitcher, man.
You got to dodge the spikes as they're throwing them at you. Ninja stars.
There you go.
But to finish us out, there is a pitcher that's available. He's playing out in Japan right now. I think he'd be a major asset to the team. This is day, I don't know, 730 about AA sign Trevor Bauer, bring him home. We need it. He'd do a lot better than Grant Holmes, I can tell you that. Yeah, if you're ever gonna do it, now would be the time. We are losing 4-0 in the 5th. But anyways, that is the good, the bad, the ugly, the elevators. It is a roller coaster if you're an Atlanta fan. And I will be the first to admit my emotions ebb and flow like our teams. So I expect elevators to be a steady rotation of segments for the Players Ball podcast moving forward. Let us know what you think. Like, subscribe, comment, rate, review. Join us on our socials, TikTok and Instagram, the Players Ball Pod. We're pumping out more and more content, trying to shake things up, do things a little differently for your entertainment. And we just enjoy talking and debating sports in Atlanta. And we appreciate y'all that are along with us for the ride. Let's get some subs up. Let's get some views up. Let's get some likes. And we'll see you on the flip.
Hey.